Do you recommend that it's not just that they have the estate plan written up, but do you recommend that there's conversations with the
Yeah.
family members and the parents so that everybody kind of knows?
Well, a lot of parents don't want to do that.
What is the biggest mistake that you've seen, professional trustees or family fiduciaries make in dealing with real estate? And I'm talking about, like, say for instance, there's a house full of 50 years of stuff and you've got siblings with different ideas and opinions, and now the fiduciary has to step in because there's been some disagreement. Maybe there was originally a family trustee and they got kicked out because they weren't moving fast enough. What's kind of the biggest mistake you would see in those kind of situations that you would like to avoid from the beginning?
What are we talking about, the house, or we're talking about the belongings in the
Well, I think
house?
you're talking about the whole scenario. So you've got a house, it's full of belongings, you've got dissenting family members, you're the fiduciary coming in. There's probably multiple ways you could approach this. What would you do first to avoid, a blow up, a further blow up with the family? How do you kind of ingratiate yourself and then work through a plan?
Well, if there's so many of them, which I've had, I would try. Yeah, I would have them come when I used to have an office, have come to my office, and we're all going to sit down, and we're actually going to have a talk about how we're going to go about this. Is there anything you remember from childhood or whatever that you really must have? Let's try to agree and write this down. Okay. And then we can have a day when they can all go in and they're all going to behave. They're
Okay.
they're
Okay.
going to behave.
Right.
And they can kick out that stuff and try to take the other stuff that they might like, because I'd rather have them have. And sometimes you have to put a value on things. This one got one for $200. I mean, you have to be a mediator, and I would be when they're all going through this to
So
make
you
sure
would you would be there for that. Okay.
they all feel like it's fair.
Right. Now,
'Cause
what if two people want the same thing? How do we resolve that?
I don't know, but we can pick a number out of a hat. I mean,
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
Now, if
because
people were really not getting along, would you first meet with them individually, whether it's on the phone or in person, to kind of hear their
yes,
side
if
of the?
sometimes they're so angry, they're just angry at you.
Right.
So,
Right.
mm,
Right. Particularly if one of them was the trustee and then the other family members litigated and got them kicked
right.
out, obviously they could be upset about that. So you kind of have to hear everybody out.
Oh, that's one thing, and I must tell people, you must listen to people. You don't have to agree with a thing they say. You must hear the people out. And when people call you on the phone, you return their phone calls, even though they're nuts. You just you just treat everyone. I mean, unless they're really abusive to you,
Right, right,
you don't have to.
right. But no, that makes sense. So it sounds like the biggest mistake to avoid is sort of plowing right in, coming onto the situation like here's what we're going to do, telling everybody what to do without sort of hearing them first so they feel heard, and then slowly suggesting a process that, hopefully works with the personal property. And then I've seen you get a lot of disagreement on, you get the family member that says, look, we just want to empty the house out and sell it as is. I see the people that say, we don't even want to empty it out. We want to sell it with all the stuff. And then I see people that are, no, we want to fix it, paint it, make it nice. And then I see people that are like, no, we want to renovate the entire house, right?
Right.
So
Right.
as a fiduciary, you're kind of guiding that path, and
Absolutely.
usually, yeah, and I'm assuming usually you kind of want to go towards the middle there, which is get the house cleaned out and make it look nice. But I don't think
But
you've ever gotten, tell me if I'm wrong, but fiduciaries generally don't get into major renovation projects to flip a house. That's not what you're
no,
trying to
they
do.
wouldn't be. That's wasting a lot of money, especially if you have a house in the Bay Area. I've discovered any piece of garbage seems to sell, at a decent price, which is kinda sad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. No, I think that's great though. First advice to really hear everybody out and then try to work.
Everybody wants to be heard. They
Exactly.
agreed on, they wanna be heard.
Right.
That's so important.
Yeah, I think that comes back to what we said at the beginning with the EQ. It's sort of like that emotional equivalency education is important. So, all right. So if you had your mentor group and I know you still talk to new fiduciaries, what advice would you give, someone who's been named a trustee or an administrator, maybe on kind of a small case, but because that's what happens sometimes when you're just starting out. What's the first piece of advice you would probably give to them?
Take some small cases.
Okay, so don't be shy away from the small cases. That's your.
No, I just had a fiduciary begging me for a case, begging me for a new one, begging me for a case. So I'm looking at a case with 350,000 with not much work. It's a special needs trust, no big deal. And then she comes back and says to me, I'm only taking them for 1 million and up.
Hmm. Okay.
Am I going to make another referral to this person? No.
Okay. Understood.
I mean,
Understood.
what is that? When you're starting out, you need to get known, not to get known as a money grubbing person.
Right. Right. Okay. So the advice there would be when someone refers you a small case that you may be able to get your, cut your teeth on, get some
Right.
experience, meet a few
Right.
attorneys, right? I mean, all these things happen in these
Exactly.
cases.
What you work
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly. You need to
Right.
get yourself known out
Right,
there.
right. No, and
They,
I have that same experience too with,
yeah,
of course, as a real estate broker, I'd love to only sell $5 million houses, but sometimes I'm selling $80,000 mobile homes in Fremont because we need to help our clients.
with the person, the
Right,
client, and they will give you other referrals. Don't
right.
burn the bridges, is
Right.
what I'm
Okay.
trying to
Okay.
say.
Good. So yeah, that's great. Be
Absolutely.
nice, be thankful, be grateful. Stepping that aside, if you had a new fiduciary that you were just kind of mentoring, and say they got a case that's someone has already died, and there's some family members that are anxious to get their money. There's not a lot of money. There's a small house to sell. What's kind of the first piece of advice you would tell that person in terms of getting this case going, marshaling assets, that kind of thing?
Wait, is this a professional
This is a
fiduciary?
professional fiduciary, a new professional
You
fiduciary, or
like
someone who's
this.
getting into the field, doesn't have a lot of experience, gets a small case. There's not any cash in the estate. There's a house with a little bit of equity in the Bay Area, and a few family members that are very anxious to get their money. What would your first sort of
Well, I
advice
would tell
be?
that person to first get themselves a mentor. Get them
Okay.
like somebody you can run the case, you can run it by. Don't do it on your own. And there are groups going on in yeah, that you can up with. So do that first. And just be clear with the beneficiaries. This is a process, and it's take time, and give them a big time frame. Because if it's under court, who knows when the court will hear the thing? And it's just trust. You tell them you have to sell it. It has to be marketed. And yeah, and make sure you have a realtor that knows probate, knows how to file with the courts, right probate forms. I always love when they don't do the right form. Someone got their brother or somebody's a realtor. It's just like somebody's a lawyer. Well,
Yep.
yep, a lawyer that knows what they're doing.
Right, right. No, that brings up a very good point. A lot of these cases, especially that's like, hey, I have a sister who just got a real estate license, and there's a pretty low barrier to entry in real estate. So you're saying look for somebody that has that experience to really help you. Same with financial advisors, same with accountants, right? There are folks that have worked with fiduciaries, and there are folks that do your tax returns. Those are different types of accountants.
Yeah, and that's what your mentor can do also.
Right.
Can it doesn't have to be a formal mentor, just somebody you could call up and they could say, "Who do you use, for a financial advisor?" That kind of thing. Or just get Yeah, don't wing it yourself.
Right, right. Okay. Well, just to kind of wrap this up, you've had I think, a pretty long and illustrious career,
Oh,
and I think it's
yeah.
wonderful that you were so involved in the beginning of this profession and helping with PFAC and helping with licensing and all that. So, what has been for you the most rewarding, meaningful part of doing this fiduciary work over the last 30 plus years. And that can be both, personally and professionally out in the community.
Well, I think the fact that I was a social worker, and when I got my social work degree, I thought I was all powerful to change the world, and I discovered I wasn't. But that you can affect one or two people, and that's great. So what I liked was feeling like I did good care for people. I made sure that they had what they could have with the resources they had. And some of them we had good relationships with, and with the family, that you become family with these people, like the one with the Union Street. I'm her mother, even though she's younger than me, but that that's the
Yeah,
role I
right,
played.
right, right,
And I mean, I kind of like that, and it was getting to know people and feel like I did good, and I also made money. So that was it. Wonderful. If you can make money and do good, who could ask for anything more?
right. So the meaningful part for you was really getting to have an impact and help all these people over the years. And then also, you're saying, from a business standpoint, you were able to create a business that supported you and things that you wanted to do as well.